Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 71848, the Temple Bounty from the Summer 2025 LEGO Ninjago Wave. This set contains 2,387 pieces, 6 minifigures, and will retail for $199.99 USD, or €199.99 Euro, depending on where you live. This set does not officially release until June 1st, 2025 in most parts of the world, and August 1st, 2025 in North America, but it was gifted to me early for review by the LEGO Group through the LEGO Ambassador Network, though of course all opinions expressed in this video are entirely my own. I'm doing early reviews of most of the Summer 2025 Ninjago sets right now, so if you're enjoying this content and you want to see more, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Liking and subscribing does a ton to help support me and the channel, and it also helps YouTube to show you my videos more often. So thank you all very much for your support, and now let's get into the review. So here is the Temple Bounty, which is the latest version of the Ninjago Destiny's Bounty. I'm honestly a little surprised to see that we're getting this year because bounties are typically 3 years apart. However, it's only been 2 years since the last one. I guess they were just ready to do a new one, which at least personally to me that does feel pretty soon. I like when there's a bit more distance between them. But with that said, this is a phenomenal set. It's a very different approach for a Destiny's Bounty, which I quite like. It's not just trying to remake the same thing again. Like, yes, it is very clearly a Destiny's Bounty, but it does some things that none of the others have done, or that we haven't seen on a Destiny's Bounty in a while. Specifically, at least to me, this set feels like it's trying to be a new version of the LEGO Ninjago movie Destiny's Bounty. That's one that I know a lot of people really love, myself included. It's by far the biggest bounty we had, at least until now. I think this one's about a similar scale. This one has about 100 more pieces than that one, and I'll do a physical size comparison between them later in this video. So I'm really glad to see they're attempting that big bounty again, because that has been a while. Aside from just being big, some other things that make this similar to the movie bounty is the sails at the top. Most other bounties have two sails that like open up to become wings, and that's just not present on this one. They're stuck permanently up like this, and that's the case with the movie bounty as well. And then the thrusters on the back too are a lot less significant on this build. There is a little transformation with them, which I do really like. They can open up like this. That exposes this cloth piece that's in the middle, which is the same material as the sails in the top, which is very different from like the giant thrusters we've seen on most of the other bounties. Another huge change with this one is you can see it actually comes with a stand at the bottom. That is something I love because it shows that the designers actually intended this set for display and not just for play. It's a very slight thing, right? It just points it ever so slightly upwards, so if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. It can very easily be removed from the stand, you just lift it up off of it. But here's a look at the stand on its own. I'm really glad this was included. And without it, the bounty can just sit flat, just like all the previous ones. So if you choose not to use it, you're not really missing anything here. You still have, like, the full bounty experience. On the underside of the bounty, you can see where it's supposed to rest on the stand. Every 2 studs, the bottom of the bounty either moves in one tile or back out one tile, and those little dips are the perfect spot to just slide the stand in place. So technically, there's 2 different places you can attach it, more back here or more up here, but I think this is definitely the one that looks better. But anyway, now I think it's time to move up a little bit closer and show you guys all the different details of this build. Starting here at the front of the ship, this is where the dragon head would typically be on a normal bounty. They did something a little bit different this time around though, where the dragon's more like a decoration, like a giant banner going all throughout the ship. So there is still a dragon head nearby, but it's not directly on the front of the ship, instead it's raised up right here and it's a good bit smaller. I still have such mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, I think it's good that it's something new, right? We've gotten the regular bounty 3 times before, and now this is our 3rd bounty that doesn't do just the typical dragon head at the front. But the last bounty we got also did mix up the dragon head a good bit by having a physical dragon in the center of the ship. So I think there was a part of me that would have preferred a more traditional dragon head this time around. That being said, I do like this idea. I think it looks a lot better in person than it does in pictures. From pictures, I kind of felt like they didn't commit themselves to it enough. It just felt like a very small part of the bounty. But having it in hand, no, this is a lot more obvious, a lot more prominent. I think it fits in well enough. The actual dragon head that they use here is an all-new piece of this wave. It's also used in 2 other sets, the Rontu set in purple and the Guardian Dragon set in green. Honestly, I think of those 3, this set probably uses the head the best because I don't feel like it's the most organic since it doesn't have a matching molded jaw. Instead, it has to be a brick-built jaw, which for something that's not supposed to be an actual living dragon, I think works perfectly fine. The others not as much, but I'll go over that in my review of those sets when I get to it. But yeah, the dragon head being up there instead of right here leaves the front of the ship completely open, so you could see this as like the loading platform for characters to actually get on the ship when it pulls up to the dock or whatever. That's very similar to what the movie bounty did, and as I said, I do prefer when there is a proper figurehead right here, but for the purposes of this set, I think it works well enough. There's studs at the front right here where you can see I had Zarkt posed. I love having lots of places to attach minifigures, and there is also quite a bit of room here underneath the dragon head. So I actually think it's really cool that there's enough room to have tons of minifigures posed on one of the more insignificant parts of the ship. That is actually a really big thing with this set is display space. There is so much room to pose minifigures both on the outside and the inside. And that is probably my favorite aspect of this build, because that's what I loved about the movie Bounty too. The ninja team is so big in this show, it's a shame whenever we get a set that's like supposed to be a base for them, but they're all sort of crammed in. This feels like a place they could all actually live, including all the new ninja. It just has that much room. The side of the bounty at the front right here is all very smooth and elegant. I especially like this effect they have going on with the two slope pieces in dark red and black. They fit in really nicely together and it just breaks up the whole LEGO grid system. It's very pretty overall. Here you can also see this printed tile in the set that's hanging off. It's got these two Spectral Ninjago letters on it, which are TB for Temple Bounty. And that is actually a print and not a sticker, and you'll see you get quite a few of them in this set. The ghostly effect I assume is because they're fighting the Spectral Dragonians this wave, so I assume it's to fit that whole like ghostly theming, because it's not the only ghostly thing on this ship. Moving over, we also have our first sticker right here, which just says the words Temple Bounty, because that's the name of the ship. It's a little strange that this is written in English and not in jargon. Lots of classic Ninjago sets did that, and we do see it every now and then these days, but they've mostly stuck to the Ninjago, and the Ninjago is all over this set in other places. So I do wonder why they chose to write this in English instead, but it looks fine. I mean, it's a cool graphic. While we're here, let's also take a look at the hull of the ship, which looks amazing. Right off the bat, we have an all-new part in this set. This comes in multiple sets this wave, but I believe this is the only one where it comes in this color. I could be wrong about that, though. I guess you guys will have to see in my other reviews. But yeah, this is an all-new, like, effect piece. It's a little wisp. And it's in, like, this minty toothpaste blue color, because that's the color that those villains use this wave, to again tie into that whole ghostly theming. These, I feel like, are just a really cool, useful part in general, and I like that they do come in multiple colors in multiple sets this wave. And I think it looks nice in the ship, almost to make it look like it's actively flying through the air. If you don't like that for some reason, it just attaches on a single clip, so you can remove it. But I think it brings some nice life and motion to the build. There's a very round, like, paneling section here to connect the wider body of the ship to the thinner front. And once again, I think it's quite impressive the way this is done. It feels like a very natural transition between these two very flat areas that are very different widths. Because it is paneling, there is a little bit of looseness to it, right? You can see there's a little bit of give here. And there's a very similar thing with this entire front section at the top. Now, if you just have this on display, you're going to be perfectly fine, or if you're being very gentle and careful with it, you'll be fine. It's not going to just fall apart, like it is sturdy enough. But this is the kind of thing that with rigorous play, especially by kids, could cause some issues in stability. So it's something to be aware of. But all things considered, it's pretty stable. Like, there's no very obvious pieces to latch onto and pull it off. I've definitely seen much worse examples of loose paneling in official LEGO sets. This feels perfectly fine to me. I love the variation of pieces to make that slope, though. That's really cool. And then there is two little anchors hanging out, one on each side. These can't retract at all, unlike the ones in some of the previous bounties, but they're just built using like a handlebar piece at the front, a little bit smaller than we tend to see as well, but I think that's fine. I'm glad this was included. And there's an identical one on the other side, too. Now coming to the main part of the hull, it really feels like it was built using wooden boards. There's dark red on the upper level, and then normal red underneath it, and then of course all these black tiles to divide it. It's like the perfect amount of texturing. It's not too simple, but it's also not overly complex. I especially love these really long angled slope pieces that it uses. Again, I assume that's originally a Speed Champions thing, because it really feels like a Speed Champions thing. But Speed Champions in the past few years has introduced so many like very specialized angled pieces that have just brought so much detail into LEGO's entire lineup. These work really nicely here, and then we do have another sticker of the Source Dragon symbol. But my favorite part here is definitely these angles at the bottom. You may have seen these for a moment when I was showing you guys the bottom of the ship earlier, but yeah, I love the way it actually rounds out down here. Again, just adds so much realism to the build, it makes the boat seem like it could actually float, even though of course it cannot because it is far too heavy for that. Then this is really neat. There's a part of the ship that sort of extends out ever so slightly from the hull, and it's got a little window in it. And that's actually one of the sleeping quarters in the ship. I'll be showing you guys the inside in just a moment, but yes, that is on both sides right next to two different beds. So when you have a character sleeping in there, they can look out the window. And I think that's really awesome. It also ties into the whole temple bounty aspect, because the whole thing is this is like a little city on a ship. But I'll get into that more in just a moment when I show you guys all the other buildings. One last thing on the side of the ship, we have these wings that are in place of the thrusters that the bounties typically have that I was showing you guys earlier, but here's a closer look. They are cloth pieces, so not vinyl or paper. I really like the dragon scales on them, that's really cool, and again, that's on the sails as well. And then there is some Ninjago on it, some at the bottom and some at the top. The Ninjago's nothing too interesting though, it's just the words Temple Bounty over and over again. And that's more clear with the sails at the top, because it's the same writing. But yeah, that's the end of the word temple, then the word bounty, and then the entire word temple again up there. So we've got that same design in the sails down here. Here at the back of the ship, we have two tiny little thrusters to propel the ship forward. There's a very nice little stickered piece here of two golden dragons. And then there's this gear here at the bottom that you can spin. If you turn it counterclockwise, it'll close up both of the wings and the sides. And then, of course, if you turn it clockwise, it's going to open them back up. Sometimes the cloth piece can get stuck between the two red pieces. You can see like this, it folds in and sort of snaps on it. So you do sort of have to help it out to push it in like that. But all things considered, I think that function is fairly effective. And again, like I said at the beginning, very different from the thrusters on the other bounties. If you're doing that a lot too, sometimes the cloth pieces detach from like the Technic ball joints that they're supposed to attach to. But that's a very easy fix. You can just slide them back on. The other side of the ship is, of course, entirely identical, just mirrored. So now let's move back up onto the deck of the ship. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of these tiny little buildings to almost make the bounty feel like a temple, because it is the temple bounty. They each have roofs done in a very similar style with these black rounded pieces. I forget where they originally come from, but I believe they started as windshields. So using them inverted to create some roof texture is very nice. And then the body of the red dragon runs throughout the center. This first building at the front does actually have one of the sails directly above it, and if we translate that in jargon, it says bounty. BOUNTY. And then, as I said, yeah, all of this is just temple bounty, temple bounty, temple bounty. This entire roof section can actually be removed to give you better access to the inside of this building. And if we take a look inside, it's actually fairly empty by default. There's, of course, the windows on the side for minifigures to look out, and a good bit of room to post figures. You could probably fit 2 or 3 in there. It is open from the front, as well as the back, so minifigures can pass through when they load onto the ship. But the only thing inside is a sextant, which probably means this is meant to be like a navigation building. Putting it back together, there is a couple more things of note. There is a few lanterns hanging off the building, and that's in the same color as those wisp pieces on the side. So again, it fits that whole like ghostly spectral theming, and you'll see those lanterns are all over this build. The other thing is the red dragon, which I was talking about earlier. As I said, it runs through the entire ship, including over this building, but as you just saw, I had to remove the roof of this building, so that means all the parts of the dragon are not actually connected. The dragon's body cuts off here, and then this is the part that goes over the roof, and then the part that connects to the head starts right here. I do understand why this had to be done the way it was. You have to be able to get in here to access that inside. But even still, I will say it does make things a little bit weaker because the gaps in the dragon are very obvious. I wish they'd found a way to make the parts of the body at least look like they connect a little bit better, because while the shape of the dragon's preserved, there is 2 very obvious gaps. But just off the top of my head, I can't really think of a better way to do this, so it's probably fine. It's just visually probably the weakest part of this build, because everything else is so strong. Anyway, outside of the building, there's 2 little, like, torches with some blue fire pieces. Again, I assume that's a tie-in with the whole spectral theming, and that's, like, spectral fire. There's quite a good bit of open space right there to pose minifigures, too. But then you can walk down these steps, and we come to the main deck, which is incredible. First up, I just love how completely and entirely open this is. With a lot of bounty sets, they try to jam-pack the deck of the bounty, which is, like, tons of accessories and little things. The sail transformation usually takes up a lot of space, so even if the deck's pretty big, sometimes it's a bit limited in how you can actually pose minifigures. This time around though, no, that is not the case at all. They basically just left it completely open. You do have the place in the center right here where the sail attaches and then a little tiny table, but both of those things feel very necessary. I do not mind that they're there, and I feel like they take up as little space as possible, and the table is just good for play reasons, right? You can set down accessories here. I like that that was included, but aside from that, it's basically just open space. You can easily fit all 6 minifigures that come in this set on this deck with space to spare. And then of course, this is far from the only place in this set to fit minifigures, so it's so easy to load this up with as many characters as you want, which I think is great. That's what a bounty should be, while simultaneously not compromising on any of the detail that the set needs. But then the way they actually did this is so incredibly smart. So these pieces that they use for the deck, these are like giant castle door pieces. I feel like they've been around for a very long time, but they've got them placed sort of flat to be trapdoors. This does a couple of things. Number one, it gives us this really cool wood board texture, which matches a pirate ship perfectly, while simultaneously giving you studs to pose figures so they can be locked onto the ship but not look like they're just standing on open Lego studs. No, instead it looks like they're on a ship made of wooden boards. But on top of all this, because they are giant castle doors, you can actually open them up, and that gives you in-universe access to the interior. I'll have to double check the other bounties, and I'll do that later in this video when I compare this one to them, but I'm not sure if any of them have like an in-universe way to get inside. Most of them are, you just take the hull apart as the person playing with it and you place the minifigures inside, then close it back up. And you can still do that with this one, right? This still comes out. But you also have the way that the minifigures themselves could theoretically get down there, which I love so much. That was the kind of thing that always bothered me as a kid when I was playing with LEGO, because you know as kids you latch on to just like the strangest things. And to me, I never liked when my minifigures had no way to get into sets themselves when they needed my help. So I think this is incredibly cool and so well done. And that interior we're going to take a look at later on. I want to finish the outside first. On the table in the center right here, there's a little lantern, and that actually does tie into Ninjago Dragons Rising Season 3. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil what it is for you guys, but that is actually a thing from the show, which is pretty neat. And then of course above that, we have the biggest sail of the ship. It's got the giant source dragon symbol in the center, tons of those like dragon scales swirling around as if it's the body of an actual dragon, though I don't think there there is a head anywhere. I don't see it on any of the sales. And then tons of Ninjago text too, which once again just says Temple Bounty, Temple Bounty, Temple Bounty. It does look like there is actually a little Easter egg in this graphic though. That Ninjago symbol right there. It's right before this letter, which is T in Temple, so it goes on to spell out Temple Bounty. But that one right there, that is the Ninjago number 6, which I assume is a reference to the fact that this is the 6th Destiny's Bounty that we've ever gotten. There was the original in 2012, then the Possession one in 2015, Movie one in 2017, the Legacy one in 2020, the first Dragons Rising one in 2023, and now number 6 is this one in 2025. Coming back down to the deck though to finish it off, we have 2 little crates right here. This one has 2 fish inside it, and the other one, if you remove the lid, has a Lego pretzel piece inside. There we go, that's what that looks like. I like these though, because it makes the bounty feel lived in, but it's not too overbearing, because I think of like the movie Bounty, and that was awesome with how much stuff was on this deck, but it could also be a little intruding too, the fact that there was so much going on. There was plants, there was fishing rods, there was little crates like this. This feels like the right amount to me, and hey, if you want to add more yourself, you can. But it absolutely feels like the priority here was minifigure space, which in my opinion was the right choice. And now it's time to move up the stairs to the next section. Again, just like a nice amount of space right here where you could pose a few minifigures if you want. It's just the path to the next building, but even that feels large. This is also right above where there's rooms in the side door that I pointed out earlier, and you can see they have roofs in the same style as all the other buildings too, despite being actually integrated into the ship. But anyway, here we have a large room on the ground floor. There's a little balcony where a minifigure could stand and look out. That's very cute. And more of those printed, like, Spectral tiles that say TB. On the back, we've got some fence pieces on their sides to be like a big window and some swords hanging down for some extra detail. And on the other side, we have another balcony in the same spot. I'm pretty sure the entire set's symmetrical, aside from what's inside. This building's the only roof that has a slightly different design. They use these, like, rounded slope pieces, and these actually come from LEGO City. It's a LEGO City stunts, these parts at the beginning of the ramp so the bikes to fly off. They did also use them for detailing in the Ninjago City workshops earlier this year, but I think this integrates them a lot better. I didn't realize they were the exact same shape as these corner pieces, which I feel like we've had for a little while now, though I might be getting my timeline mixed up on that. There's 2 more of those wisp pieces in the same color coming out of the back of the bounty, so you get a total of 4 of them in this set, and again, that just makes the bounty feel like it's actually moving through the air. While on the front, instead, there's 2 more of those lanterns hanging down. Anyway, of course, the minifigures can move through this door at the front to get inside, and I can actually take off this entire roof section to get better access into the interior. Inside, there's a table with a map on it, but it's very open once again. I have to imagine that's because they want you to pose minifigures all around the table. And yeah, actually, here it is with just the 5 ninja in this set, and you can see there's a ton of room left over. You can easily fit 1 or 2 more minifigures on this side because there's nobody there yet, and then if you shuffled some people around, maybe remove some armor pieces or some really big hair pieces like Nia's, I wouldn't be surprised if you could fit an additional 1 or 2. So I think that's awesome that there's an actual, like, war room where they can all come together and plan. Now, because there is so much space for minifigures, there's not as much stuff going on in terms of detailing in here, but there's a couple of things. There's a little printed brick that says T on it in Ninjago. This originally comes from the Ninjago City markets, I want to say, so it's cool to get it in more sets if you don't have that one. On the other side, there's a golden minifigure statuette. Now, this is going to sound like a very small thing, but I really wish this was printed. The past 2 years, we've gotten nanofigure versions of the ninja. The Ninjago City markets came with a nanofigure Cole and a nanofigure Jay, and then the Tournament Temple City last year came with a nanofigure Kai. So after we got those 2 years in a row, I was hoping to get Zane or maybe Lloyd this year in one of the sets, but then there was just nothing of the sort in the Ninjago City workshop, so I was hopeful maybe this set would have something. But nope, this set does not include one either, so I guess we're just not getting a new one this year. I hope at the very least we do still get Zane at some point, because he would finish off the original ninja. But yeah, because they did include a statuette here, this would have been the perfect set for it. So I wonder if maybe that was a budget thing and it was swapped out for an unprinted version. And finally on the back wall, there's a printed envelope, a dark blue stamp piece to presumably be a stamp, and this little build right here, which I assume is meant to be a telescope, because that would make sense for a ship, and that's just what this looks like. And then there is actually a transformation here. This table in the center can flip up, and that reveals a control panel on the inside. There's like a standard LEGO printed control panel at the bottom right here, but then these 2 parts are stickered. This one's got a radar dish on it, and it looks like it's located Zarkt, and this one seems to be controlling the thrusters or wings or whatever on the side. Lifting that up, of course, unlocks even more floor space in the front of it, but it does also block off the door at the entrance. And then one more thing with this map, it actually ties in with the collectible of this wave, the Revealing Blade. These come in basically every set, but Cole holds it in this set. And they're these big transparent red swords. The idea is you place it over these stickers and the blue sort of just becomes dark and invisible and the red becomes a lot more vibrant. So it's like you're revealing the secrets of the sticker as you do it. I find that to be a really cool play feature, and there is some variant of it in pretty much every single set this wave. So I'm glad that even in this one, where there's no like actual villain build or anything, we still have some form of it. Now reattaching this roof, we come to our final building in the set, at least before going into the hole and seeing what's in there. This one's got the roof in the same style as most of the others, more of these little lanterns. It does have the final sale right above it, and this just spells out the word temple in Ninjago, and then again that text is temple bounty, temple bounty. There's more of these printed tiles on the side, a telescope that hangs out the back, so we have a few of those in this set. But the biggest thing is of course the steering wheel at the front. This is where the bounty's actually piloted, and there's plenty of room for a pilot and a few other minifigures to stand around up here. I got a little ahead of myself for a moment, but yes, the roof section does come off, just like all the other ones. And that gives you a much better look at the inside. There's honestly not a ton of room in here, it's basically just the telescope as well as this right here, and this is both a trapdoor and a ladder. It creates division between this floor and the floor below it, but in universe, if you want a minifigure to get from the bottom floor up to this floor, you can push this down, and that's now a ladder that hangs into the lower room that they can climb up to get up here. But now I think it's finally time to move inside the hull of the ship. So it comes apart in 3 separate sections. I already showed you this one right here. It comes completely out, but then you could do the same thing with this building at the front right here, and the entire back section. It all comes off. Now you can see inside, and it is so incredibly spacious in here, like by far the best interior of any bounty, at least in terms of space. This back section is the sleeping quarters, that's where those windows were on the outside, and we have 2 of these curved pieces, which are the same ones that are used on the roofs, but in white this time around to be like little hammocks, so this is where you can have your minifigure sleep. It's not super clear to me who the beds are supposed to be for. This one just has a little red lamp and an alarm clock. I would assume maybe Wyldfyre because it's red and Kai's not in this set, but I think it's kind of up to your interpretation. The alarm clock sticker I don't think is the best because they have like the faded out parts of the numbers, which I get what they were going for, but I think they made the dark red on it too vibrant, so it makes it a little tough to read what it's supposed to say, but it does say 2011, which is a reference to the year that Ninjago started. While on the other side we have a little waffle on a plate, which makes me think of Aaron because he came with one in the Ninjago City markets, but Aaron is not included in the set, so I would assume this is probably not meant to be Aaron's. And then the second thing right here is actually super cool. This is a little model kit for Kai's climber mech. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Ninjago City workshops that came out earlier this year, there was a whole model shop in that set that had mechs for every single ninja except for Kai. Instead, there was like an empty slot where Kai's mech was supposed to be. Well, I guess the reason it wasn't included in that set is because it came in this set. So here's the final mech for that collection. You can slot this into the Ninjago City workshops, or you could just keep it here as is. But I think it's neat they provided context as to where that went. This also doesn't really indicate to me whose cop this is supposed to be, because I would think maybe Aaron because he's a big fan of the ninja, but again, Aaron's not in this set, or Kai because it's a Kai mech, but Kai is also not in this set, so I think it's really just supposed to be whoever you want. When you're down here, the cots can fold up pretty easily if you want better access down here, and while there is a ton of room to pose minifigures, just like the rest of the set, I do have to admit it's not the prettiest looking. I guess that does kind of make sense, right? You wouldn't expect the whole of the ship to be fully furnished, but even still, I kind of wish there was a more consistent design here. I'm not a huge fan of how the floor jumps back and forth between black and brown. I think it would have looked better to stick with just one color. But yeah, there's tons of room to fill this up with minifigures if you want, and it also gives you room for customization if you want to add in more beds or whatever else you want. There's definitely a lot of possibilities here. At the back, you can see the mechanism to transform the thrusters is fully exposed, which normally I'd be against, but I don't know, I think it's kind of neat. It makes sense for there to be a more mechanical part of the ship that might need like work done on it or something. I don't mind it being exposed, especially because it does leave more room to pose minifigures. There's a doorway to get between rooms, and this next room over is a lot nicer in my opinion. It's like a little sushi bar. There's a counter you can have minifigures stand behind to prepare the sushi, and just like everything in the set, there's plenty of room there, right? They're not like crammed into one corner. It feels like a more realistic scale. There's a knife and a pan for them to use. Behind that on the wall, there's a bottle of something as well as probably some sort of spice. There's soy sauce on the counter right here. There's of course some sushi already prepared here on the counter, and then another on this table right here, which you can see has 2 seats next to it where minifigures can sit down and have a meal. But that's not even all in this room. There's also tons of things lining the walls. Here on this wall, there's the Prime Empire controller piece, which cool to see that's still being produced in these colors too. I know it's been in other sets in other colors, but yeah, this is the original Ninjago Prime Empire hilt, so if you guys missed out on that wave, you can still make a Prime Empire sword using this. And then there's a stickered like screen behind it, and it says Gallimorph X Post. If you guys have seen Ninjago Dragons Rising Season 3 Part 1, that is the video game that Kai and Nia play to try to contact Jay. So it's cool to see that referenced in an official set, like it is something from the show. On this wall over here, there's a little bonsai tree growing, which is super cute. But then behind that is a picture of Aaron and Baby Ryu, and Aaron's making little hard eyes at Baby Ryu. That's super cute. The other side has a portrait of Zane and Pixel with a little roller skate underneath it. I'm not entirely sure what the roller skate's supposed to be. It could represent like one of Lloyd's car vehicles, but if it does tie in with Zane and Pixel at all, I'm not really sure how. So if you guys have any ideas, let me know in the comments. Next to that, there's 2 golden chalices, which of course you can remove to give to minifigures as accessories. That way, if you want them to have a little drink, they can. And finally, next to that, we have a flyer for Chen's Noodle House. It says Chen's at the top, it's got a little heart next to it, and then we have a necklace with a source dragon pendant on it. And I assume this is meant to be a reference to Skylar, because of course Skylar is Chen's daughter. After Chen was defeated, she took over the Noodle House business, so that's her business. The heart would make sense because that's Kai leaving that there. And there's a bright orange flower right underneath it, and of course bright orange is Skylar's color. So I imagine that this is maybe meant to be a cute little memorial for Skylar until Kai sees her again, since we haven't seen her memorial with the others in the show. It is a little bit weird that Kai does not come in this set, but that's my only interpretation as to what this could be. Otherwise, I don't know why we have a heart next to the Chen's Noodles poster. Here's a look at it loaded up with all the ninja minifigures in the set. Once again, just like all the other sections of this build, like there's plenty of room to breathe here. If you want to add in some other ninja minifigures from the other sets, you could probably fit like 2 or 3 more in here. It might get a little tight, but like right now it's not at all. I think that's very impressive. Finally, we have one more doorway that leads into one last room, and this is like a little training room slash weapons room. There's quite a few different accessories on the walls, right? There's shurikens right there, there's katanas that slide into a little compartment. On the other side, there's a katana in the same compartment, as well as one of Lloyd's movie swords. And then in the center, it's kind of hard to see because of this giant beam in the way, so I'll remove it. But there's a little training dummy for the ninja to practice and train on. There's 2 more little stickered pictures too, one on each side. This one especially is very awesome. It's a picture of Kai and Nia's blacksmith shop from the Ninjago pilots. So cool to see that called back to, especially because this is the TV show design, not the set design. I would love to get an official set of this one day that like actually looks how it does in the show. Really cool to see it referenced here though. And then there's a very similar portrait on the other side. Let me remove that. I believe this one is just meant to be the monastery of Spinjitzu on top of a hill seen from afar. Which if so, also very cool, not nearly as exciting as the blacksmith shop because that's the kind of thing we don't see referenced nearly as often, but the monastery is also very iconic. I do not have any inside info, but I know Ninjago's 15th anniversary is next year. Imagine if this is supposed to be a hint towards 2 sets coming out next year, a new monastery and a new blacksmith shop. That sounds too good to be true, but that would be amazing if so. I'm just saying it because if I'm right, that would be really cool to have this clip. Okay, and I think that's about all I have to show you for the main build of this set, at least for now, and there is no side builds in this set, but we still have the minifigures to look at. Quickly first though, before we get into that, let me show you guys a quick size comparison between this set and some of the previous bounties. I'm not going to do every single bounty just because there's a lot now. I may do a separate video on that at some point, but I just want to show you guys how this compares to specifically the movie bounty and then the last bounty we got, the previous Dragons Rising bounty. Okay, so here is the new bounty with the movie bounty and then the last Dragons Rising bounty, the Destiny's Bounty Race Against Time. It's kind of hard to show the scale in comparison on camera. I'll do some more direct comparisons in just a moment. But just visually having all these lined up, I put the movie bounty next to the new bounty, and it's kind of surprising how like nearly identical they are in terms of size. They're like the exact same length, and in fact the first Dragons Rising bounty is a very similar length too. But it's not just length when it comes to the movie bounty and the temple bounty, they're also about the same height, both in terms of the hole and like the overall height, and the width of the deck is about the same, 12 studs. Moving the Dragons Rising bounty out of the way and having these 2 lined up, you can see the temple bounty is ever so slightly longer, but in fact a lot more so if you don't count the dragon heads, because that one doesn't have the dragon head coming out of the front, instead it's on top. So in terms of actual like deck space, there is more on the newer one. Height you can see is also very similar. Obviously there's the gigantic sails, but if I remove those temporarily from the movie bounty, you can see the deck's at a very similar level. I think it's up a little bit higher on the movie bounty, but it's a rather negligible difference. The width of the deck between these 2 you can see is very similar. The movie bounty looks a lot bigger, but that's because it has these railings that come off the side, as well as all these plants and lanterns on the edges that take up space. In terms of actual minifigure space though, it's 12 studs here and about 12 studs here. This one's a little bit off of 12 studs because it uses these door pieces so you don't see like exact stud count, while this one's all actual LEGO studs you can place minifigures onto. But yeah, the actual space for the main deck is very, very similar. Though, of course, the temple bounty has more like in front of this building and in front of right here, as well as up there. While the movie bounty is wider for longer, but it doesn't have as many different places to pose minifigures. The upper level in the movie bounty is longer, but the space inside the hull is definitely a little bit less. It's not as wide, there's a lot more stuff on the walls, and it cuts off a lot earlier, while the hull goes all the way to the front of this one. Simply because of those wider railings and that like larger section in the back, I do think in terms of footprint the movie bounty is still slightly bigger, but I am impressed with how close these are because we have not had a bounty that feels as big as the movie bounty since the movie bounty. I never thought we'd get one that big again, so it's cool to finally have it. I'd also say in terms of like total minifigure posing space, it's about the same. The temple bounty definitely has a good bit more inside the hull and also more towards the front, but the movie bounty has a much larger upper section and the interior of the lower section is also a little bit bigger. I don't know the exact measurements, but I'd say the temple bounty probably has slightly more room. It's very, very similar though. But yeah, this feels like a good successor to the movie bounty. Definitely not a replacement for it, like they both still have their place, but it finally feels like, at least in terms of size, we have another bounty on par. And then quickly, here it is with the Last Dragons Rising bounty. You can see in terms of length, it's very similar. The Last Dragons Rising bounty, in fact, is very similar to the length of the movie bounty, but there is a lot more deck space in the new one in comparison. Not only does it not have to accommodate for the dragon at the front, but it also doesn't have this super thin beam in the center, and the hull of this last bounty is a good bit shorter. So there's only one room inside, and it is a very good room. Like, I do like this a lot, but in terms of like size, it does not compare at all. And this building at the back is only one room. Well, this roof area does open up, but it's just a spot for Ryu. I still really like the Dragons Rising bounty, but it is definitely trying to do something very different. So I'm not sure which of the two I prefer as sets, but in terms of space, this by far is so much bigger. So if you guys have this one and you're thinking about getting this one, hopefully that gave you some sense of how much bigger it actually is. But now it's finally time to move on to the minifigures in this set, and here are the first two. We have the all-new suits for Zane and Nia. I'm not sure what we're calling these, maybe the Spectral suits, because I know it's like the Spectral Dragonians or who they're fighting this wave, but if there's an official name for them, which I don't know, feel free to let me know in the comments. Anyway, Zane and Nia here are both kind of exclusive to this set. Zane 100% is completely exclusive, and then Nia's armor piece is exclusive, but then you could get the rest of the figure in a $20 set. I guess I'll start off by talking about the new armor pieces, because I think they're really cool. They're dual molded in gold and whatever the ninja's color is, so in Zane's case it's white, and in Nia's case it's azure. But they've got like this dragon face over one shoulder, very similar to the golden dragon armor that we saw in Season 9 on Wu. On the other side is like this more bamboo-esque armor, and then they have room around the back where they can hold two katanas, just like the old ZX armor. I like that we have dual-molded armor now, just like we had on the climber suits last year, and I think this is very cool looking. I just don't know how I feel about this being a half mask. All of the ninja just have their hair out, the ones who use headbands do have their headband hair pieces, and I feel like that just doesn't fit this armor. With how bulky it is, it feels like it should be a full ninja suit, and it's just not. It is compatible with the Dragons Rising hood, so if you have extras from your collection, you can easily swap it out. And I have to be honest, especially on Zane, I like this so much more. It feels like a way more complete ninja suit. So it's a shame this isn't what they went with officially, though of course it's very easy to customize yourself. But yeah, the headband hair pieces are okay, it just feels a little bit odd to me. In terms of the design of the actual outfits, they're very unique this time around because there's two colors that all of them have in common. They all use like these dark tan straps on their torso, they also have these golden tassels hanging down. But then the really cool part is the belt and the knee pads are dark red on every single ninja. Now that doesn't look too out of place on Nia because she has used dark red before. In fact, this is a pretty standard Nia color scheme. The dark tan's a little bit out there, but it fits her well enough. Zane though, I don't think Zane has ever used red in any form, so that really stands out on him, but in the best way possible. I think the dark red looks amazing with this blue color that they chose, and I love that the light blue is so prominent, it looks phenomenal. These are also the first Dragons Rising suits where all of the original ninja don't match each other perfectly. Like most of the others have basically just been recolors with different symbols changed out and maybe different elemental effects. This suit line though, while they're all obviously meant to match each other, the designs of the straps and the tassels and everything are slightly different, which is more like what they did before Dragons Rising, and that makes me happy to see. It's more interesting to cover that way. Anyway, they each have like a trim on their robe that represents their element, so Zane has like these little ice crystals, and Nia's got these flowing waves. Nia's outfit, I gotta be honest, is probably my least favorite this wave. I feel like Nia's outfits are always my favorite or my least favorite, and very rarely in between. And the biggest thing is just the color discrepancy. Her armor is azure, but then the rest of her outfit's gunmetal gray. I really like both of those color schemes for her, and I really don't mind which one they use, but I wish they leaned a little bit harder into it, because it feels like her top half is azure and her bottom half is gunmetal gray, and there's not much crossover. I think she would look a lot better if her mask was also gunmetal gray, or if they kept the mask as is and made the torso and legs azure with gunmetal gray detailing instead. So unfortunately, I do feel like she's probably one of the weaker ones just because she is so mismatched, but the overall design's so cool that it's not the end of the world. Taking their armor pieces off, there's a full look at their torso prints. This is yet another Zane suit where his chest is exposed, so you can see a little bit of his heart and it's metallic silver. That looks awesome. This suit might be even cooler without the armor piece. And honestly, taking the armor off I think improves Nia too, because she doesn't have that azure just taking over. This feels like a gunmetal gray suit instead. Turning them around, they have their symbols on the back, but they're sort of like spray painted on there. But yeah, we have the Ninjago letter Z for Zane and the Ninjago letter N for Nia. And they both have just like their standard post-movie face prints. Oh, and another thing to mention with these suits is the molding mark. It's not super obvious on Zane, but it's really bad on Nia and pretty much the rest of the ninja. If you guys don't know, that's essentially the mark where the piece is cut from the machine, and pretty much every LEGO piece has them. A lot of them are very hidden away, but they have become worse like as of the last 8 years, and this has to be one of the worst examples I've seen. There's just this off-color dot in the center of the minifigure's design, and it's very distracting. I wish they found a better place to put that. Either inside of the armor or on the back or something. It being front and center like that does not look good. Luckily, that's not an issue for Zane because it being off-color just makes white white. But yeah, you just have this lighter blue dot on Nia, and it does not fit in at all. Overall, though, I love the Zane suit. Fantastic minifigure. A bit of a shame he's exclusive to a $200 set, but he's a nice one to get if you are getting this $200 set. And Nia is great to get, even if she's not my favorite of the wave. After that, here are the next two minifigures in the set. We have Cole and we have Rogue, or Jay. Starting with Cole's accessory, I showed you guys this a little bit earlier, but this is the revealing blade, which is the collectible of this wave. Well, it's not really the collectible because it comes in basically every single set, but it's like the gimmick weapon for this wave. It's a really cool design though. It's got like this very thick, transparent orange blade, sort of reminds me of the Master of the Mountain weapons, but transparent orange is a color we've not really seen on a Ninjago weapon before, and this amazing looking dragon face with like horns that crawl up it. It looks great from both sides too. I do wish they came in multiple colors or with slightly different molds in different sets because they are all exactly the same, but even if they don't, it's a very cool piece. And then Jay comes with these two lightning blades, which are the same as he had earlier this year in the Dragonian Storm Village set. However, now the hilts are gold instead of black, maybe showing that he's a good guy. Removing the accessories though, here we have a better look at Cole, and you can see he follows the same design principles as the other two we just looked at. He's got the dark red belt and knee pads, the dark tan on his torso, which looks amazing on him, and then this like orange rocket design for the trim of his robes. I will say the orange feels very vibrant here, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. I think because it is so chunky, it feels almost a little cartoony, so maybe that's what throws me off a little bit, but overall I still really like it. I think it's just the rest of the colors are so dark, that really stands out. I'm happy it's there, but I wish it was maybe a little more subdued. Then he of course has that same armor piece but in black, again with that molding mark which is very obvious on him. And he does not have his headband hairpiece because he has just not had that since the island for some reason. Taking his armor piece off, there's a better look at his torso print. You can see he's got armor underneath and that's like metallic gunmetal gray. That's a very neat inclusion on this minifigure. And then something that's kind of surprising is his arms are actually a different color from his torso. They're gunmetal gray, just like what Nia uses. I was kind of surprised by that because that's a color that Cole has never really used outside of his 10th anniversary golden figure, but it fits him really well and it just makes this figure extra cool. And then he's got that same like etched symbol on the back, and of course his movie face print. Now Rogue is actually the same minifigure from earlier this year, so I've already covered him before in the channel, but interestingly he does actually somewhat match the design of the rest of the ninja this wave. It's not like as much as they match each other, but there's a few design elements that are carried over. He does also have a dark red belt, and he's got these tassels hanging down with his initials on him. The rest of the ninja just have one initial, right? Cole's is the Ninjago letter C for Cole, while Rogue has both an R and a J because he's both Rogue and J. He uses the Tournament of Sources armor piece in gold, and with that removed you can see he does have a symbol on the back just like the rest of the ninja, but it's not in a circle in the same way that the others are. He's got an amazing face print too with this just like angry expression. Again, it's the same one from earlier this year, but I love it. So happy to have that for Jay. I think it's really cool that he somewhat matches the others, and I'm happy to have him in more sets. This is also far from the only set he comes in this wave. He comes in 2 others as well. Super cool minifigure though. And then Cole, this is not the only set that he comes in. He does come in one other cheaper set in this suit. It's the combat vehicle set, the like $90 one. So there is a slightly cheaper way to get him, however this is a very nice way to get him if you're not interested in that set. And then here are the final 2 minifigures in this set, our last ninja Wyldfyre, and then the one villain in this set, Zarkt. I'll go quick through this Wyldfyre figure because I talked about it so many times already. I really like it. I think it's an amazing suit for her, but it's the same one from March 2024. She's come in so many sets at this point. I would like to see them update her. An entirely new suit would be cool, but my biggest thing is just the face print. I think she desperately needs a double-sided face. We're 3 years in, she's still stuck with a single-sided one. I don't know why. And I would like to see her have an updated suit to match the rest of the ninja, but at the very least, this is a quite good minifigure, so I don't mind getting multiples of it. Unfortunately, she does not come with her armor piece anymore, which is a shame because I did really like that. But the figure looks good even without it. It just comes in lots and lots and lots of sets. It's even in a $10 set earlier this year. So nice to get, but not a hard one to get. Zarkt is cool to get again because he's one of the Forbidden 5. He was the one introduced in the March wave who came in the $100 Arc Dragna Focus set, and then he comes in 2 more sets this wave. He's the master of Misfortune, a little bit of a fraud in the show, but he's got an amazing design. I like the golden chains all over his body that are like locking him up. It's such an awesome like ominous design. His helmet's also a really neat part that only he's ever used. I actually didn't know it was a real thing last time I reviewed this figure, but it's a Ronin Gasa. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Which is a type of like samurai hat made out of bamboo. Amazing piece though. I like that it has a stud on the top too, so you can customize it if you want. And then underneath he does have a full face print. If you don't know, Zarkt is supposed to be a panther, so that's why he's got the purple stripes. And he does also have a double-sided face. One side's angry, and the other side's angrier. I find it pretty funny that he gets a double-sided face despite his face being completely covered up, but Wyldfyre does not. Though ideally they would just both have it. Back torso print is awesome too. You have like these black tendrils escaping from beneath the Forbidden 5 symbol. And that symbol is the number 5, but it's also sort of shaped like a dragon. I assume to represent Thunderfang, because he's who they were trying to free. So yeah, despite his performance in the show, I think he's a very cool minifigure, and I'm quite happy to get him again. But now, overall, what are my thoughts on this set? I gotta be honest, going in, I was not super thrilled about the idea of getting another bounty so soon, especially one that's so expensive. $200 is a lot of money, especially for a Ninjago set. But now, building it up, having it in hand, I have to say, I am very impressed. I know a lot of people missed out on the movie bounty, so it's so cool to have another bounty in that scale. And just having so much room to pose minifigures is amazing. That's exactly what I always wanted as a kid. Minifigure selection, I'm gonna be honest, leaves a little bit to be desired. Only 6 minifigures in a $200 set is kind of ridiculous, especially when one of them's the super common Wyldfyre minifigure. I think this easily could have come with a whole ninja team, and if it did, that like really would have sealed the deal. So without that, the value is a little bit hard to judge. The movie bounty is a very similar size, though I believe it came with a few more minifigures, and that was $160 when it came out 8 years ago. Obviously, the market is not the same place it was back then. There has been inflation, there's been a lot of other things happening, and this does have about 100 more pieces. So I understand this one being a bit more expensive. I think close to 180 would feel a bit more fair, but 200 does not feel as ridiculous as it sounds, and it is over 2,000 pieces, so it is still a pretty good price per part. But overall, I like this set. I think it's very well done, and it does a good job to justify its existence, which I was really worried it wouldn't. I didn't think I needed another bounty, but this feels so different from the others that I understand why you'd want to have this on shelves. Oh, and it's awesome that it has a stand too. That was a really smart choice. Now, would I actually recommend this set to you guys? It depends. I think this is a lot more interesting if you don't already have the movie bounty. Now, it is still interesting if you do, but I think the biggest market for this set is people who do not have a giant bounty yet, because this is exactly that. It's an amazing playset, like there's so much room for minifigures, but it's also great for display too, with that stand and everything. But I think my biggest hesitation is that minifigure selection. They do try to get you with 2 exclusive minifigures, Zane and Nia, but there's always a chance they come in a magazine or something. I don't know if you need to be going day one to get this just for those minifigures. So if you're buying on a bit more of a budget, this is like a fine all-in-one set, but you might have more fun if you spend your money on a few other smaller sets. But if you either don't have a bounty or you do have a bounty but you don't have a big bounty, and this set does interest you, I don't think you're going to be disappointed by it. The minifigure space both inside of it and outside of it are by far the best part. So I do think there's a lot to love. So far from a must-have by any means, but if it's a set you can afford and it's a set you're interested in, I really don't think you're going to be disappointed by it. But of course, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to my channel if you're new. And let me know in the comments which summer 2025 Ninjago set you want to see an early review of next. But as for this one, I think that's about all I have to say, so thanks for watching everybody, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!